Believe it or not, this old shed here is going to eventually be our 40-person restaurant. So this is stage 2 of our development. So stage 1 is doing our accommodation, which we've talked a little bit about. This will be our second one. So my background is in catering. My mum was a chef, owned a couple of own restaurants, and was pretty well known in our little small town in Queensland. We all grew up in her restaurants. So I'm from a big line of foodies in my family. I've got one of 10 kids, and we're all pretty food orientated. We grew up with food being pretty exciting. So it was also one of the best things about connecting with this little farm was that we had space to do some growing and bits and pieces, and that my business partners already had some development plans in to turn this into a restaurant because they're very food orientated as well. So I have a background in catering. I've had a catering business for quite a few years here on the Fleurieu. Owned a little cafe in Yankalilla, which did quite well, and we absolutely loved it. We made some really good community connections, food and local growing connections, which was really cool. But now we kind of get to do that on our own level and in our own space. So we're creating our veggie garden orchard yard at the moment, and we hope that it's going to all be pretty self-sustainable, growing a lot of our own meat that we're going to serve here as well. We want to share our area, and it's a cool old shed right across from our vineyard as well. So there's this huge dream there that there's probably only about 3 or 4 of us that could actually see the dream, but it's coming. Slowly but surely it's coming. All right, plans are, number 1 is basically clearing everything out, which is going to be a bit hard because we've got our Marin and Yabby tank over here. We have our miniature chooks up here. We also have our old barn hens, we call them, because they don't really want to live down in Chicken Town, so they live up here. We've got a cute little seedling centre out here, which is a bit of a shit show as well, but we are growing bits and pieces to create seeds for our new garden. So we're basically clearing everything out. We're going to gut it all, line it. We still want it to be pretty rustic, but a really cool rustic. So this will hopefully eventually get turned into a bit of a cigar bar area and have a cool little bar out there. We'll have a kitchen down. I'm definitely not taking you into the cleaning room because it is like the opposite of clean. And then, so that will be our new kitchen down there. And then up in here will be our cool bar area, some fridges, bits and pieces. So we want it to look, we don't want it to be too old and quirky. I think it'll look old and quirky, but inside we'll fit it out and it'll be beautiful. So this is our famous Spotty the shed cat. Oh, okay, sorry. So Spotty was a little rescue that came to us. She was one of our first animals here on the farm as well. For quite a long time, she lived up at our main house. We had her desexed over winter one year and let her sleep inside by the fireplace, and after that she decided she was going to be a house cat. But we had a bit of a mice outbreak a few years ago, so then she has decided she's living in the shed, and she very rarely ventures out of the shed. It is definitely her domain, but she also puts up with all of our random animals. So we have all of our brooder box of baby chickens. We hatch up here as well. Quite often I'll let these little guys out cruising around. Spotty does not try and eat anybody, has never cared about eating baby chickens, which is pretty cool. So I don't know whether she's like marama guarding them as well or not, I'm not sure. But she copes with everybody randomly who has to live up here for whatever reasons. Then we've got Jackson and Colin, who are our 2 roosters that live up at the shed, and their little flock of old mix of battery hens and caravanning farm hens that we purchase every year. This is also our chicken hospital up here. So we've got all our miniatures up here at the moment. They got mites really bad this year, so they're living up here as well until we give their coops enough time to get rid of the mites down in Chicken Town, and everyone just kind of cruises along. So when we first started the development with the new... Thank you, Jackson. When we first started the development plans with the new cellar door, it was a little bit more grand than what the reality of it has become. We end up having to spend a lot more on development than what we originally budgeted for and what we originally planned. That is just part of it. way more engineering reports. If you ever go through this, times your engineering reports by 10, and that's probably about where you'll be at. So, Jackson, we know you're here. So for us now, I mean, this was going to be very grand when we first started it. We've definitely dumbed it down, which is actually not a bad thing to have to do at all. It's so much more simple, probably a lot more authentic to our farm and what we've become over the last couple of years. So we'll dry line all of this. We'll have loads of chairs and tables. Oh my God, enough. We do, still have visions of maybe having some cool big potbelly stoves to it. So we definitely want a rustic vibe, but a little bit better than that. And, we still have no idea of what food we're going to do. We know we want to grow everything ourselves, but there's this really fine line between what other people in our area have done, what sort of things are modern and exciting. And so I think that part will come with trial and error. We'll see what people like. We'll probably try a bunch of different bits and pieces, but a huge part of it for us too. So we've been given this really wants to be on camera. He's only young, he doesn't get much of the spotlight. One of the big things that we want to do here and tie into our accommodation is doing some micro weddings, family celebrations. So having a 40-person restaurant doesn't sound huge, but it's exactly what our farm can cope with. It also means that we'll have enough accommodation for everybody out of that 40-person group to stay if they want to for a weekend, and enjoy the farm as a whole, not just the restaurant on its own. Another part that's really exciting for me, coming from a cafe and community background with what we had created with our cafe a few years ago, is having Sunday mornings open here. So I'm so excited about people being able to buy a little bit of fresh veg for the week, little kids running around with our animals and our chickens, and having Toby the sheep up and the Maroma sitting out. So that's a really exciting thought for me, is having that little bit of probably based more at locals than the tourists. I think that's going to be a really cool thing for our community to have. So the idea behind having a new cellar door and new accommodation was just generating income for this little farm, using a little bit of the identity that it still sort of had, but creating our own as well. We're such foodies, so having a cellar door with some grunt to it and some beautiful food that we have produced is, I guess, a dream, but like a needed dream, because we really had to make money to keep this little farm going, keep it functioning, be able to make enough to put back into it to make it really, really good again. Once upon a time, this little farm was pretty well known amongst our community and our locals, and even tourists that would come down would call into the old cellar door. Over the years, it became quite run down. Different people had different identities for it. Different people had different budgets for it, and so it sort of lost its way a little bit. So being able to give this back to our community, our locals and tourists that come here is super exciting for us. So second stage of this dream and these plans was getting some sort of development approval process going. So first up was talking to our local council just to get some bare basics of what we had to do. Then we engaged in a local developer here in South Australia and a really good architect. So our architect and our developer have just really driven us. We had absolutely no idea what we were doing. We just thought we'd plonk down some plans and council would tell us yes or no if we could do it. We pretty quickly realised within months of going into it that is not how it works. It costs way more. We've been, from the time we kind of thought of doing this, it's been about 4 years. So, we're not even at building stage yet. So there's a lot more to it. Some people can probably get through it a bit easier. depending on what you've got on your land, what you've already had on your land, what's previously been on there, what's previously been approved, what different licenses you have. There was so much more to it than what we thought. But you also hit a stage, I say to people all the time, it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. You've got to have very thick skin and be willing to take a lot of setbacks and cut downs. We've had to change paths so many times. We still might have to before we even get to the end of this, change plans again. So I guess you have to be you have to be able to easily adapt to things, not get too wrapped up. At the end of the day, we still see this vision and we still see this dream, and it's all for the right reasons. But yeah, it's a longer process, but having those couple of key people in place is absolutely needed. So step number 3 is actually getting it done. We're still a little while away from that. I mean, I basically update our website every 6 months to say we'll probably be open in 6 months' time. During the course of this process, we've had to change plans so many times. So originally we had dome tents that were approved to put up in our top paddock. We had 7 of them approved through council and through our local Fluoro board as well. So that was very exciting. That day we celebrated, we drank lots of wine, we were high-fiving and cheering, we got the cellar door through. After a lot of, community consultation, or some people that weren't super excited about it, others that were in support of it. But we then went for building approval and figured that we cannot get dome tents approved here. So we sort of got to a final stage and then had to rejig all over again. So there was so much that couldn't be approved up there. There's different parts with wastewater systems that we've had to deal with, and traffic control issues that we've had to deal with, trees in the wrong spot, so it ends up all being more and more and more. So we're hoping that in the next 12 months we've changed our domes to 1-bedroom studio units, and we're hoping we're actually having them manufactured at the moment. We're hoping they're going to be here in the next 3 or 4 months. They are all Australian standard. We've had lots of advice. Paid advice is very important as well. Don't just go off a whim of someone telling you you can do something, even if they're a professional. So we've had lots of paid advice saying that what we've created now, we can actually put there, and then the work starts. So, even when we get these bits, or when we clean out the shed, there's still the renovation part and all of that. And so in my head, I think, we'll have that done in 4 weeks. Realistically, that's still a 6-month process, because it's not just, it's not concentrating on one job for 4 weeks straight. It's doing your other life as well, and all the bits that are going on around you, and getting maybe a few hours a day or a couple of days a week to actually do what you think you can do in a month. So hopefully in 12 months, we'll have a cellar door and 4 to 7 new studios. But if we get 4 studios up and a clean cellar door, that will probably be a win for us in this process. The practical side of turning this shit show into a restaurant. So actually renovating it is not overwhelming for me. That part's really exciting. But the clean up and figuring out where everything's got to go. I mean, this shed has been kind of our holding pen for 3 years. So while we have been working on certain things, I've talked about it before with the vineyard, that other stuff just has to take a bit of a backseat. So this old shed has taken a bit of a backseat, and it has literally been the holding pen for animals, for machinery, for rubbish, catering stuff. It's basically where we move our really messy part of life into. So it's actually a little bit overwhelming having to now, we've really got to make some decisions on where everything on our farm's going to live, as in machinery and gardening supplies and yabby tanks and, old things that we think we're going to use one day. We've got to start finding spaces for all that, and even just the time that it's going to take to actually do that itself. Once we figure out where everything can go, I would say that's a little bit of an overwhelming part for me, that we really have to get a good plan for. So this is Ross, who has been causing all the noise in the background. He wants his 3 minutes of fame, so we'll just give it to him. He's pretty handsome, so. But watch the next video. We're going to go through a bit of the development process and how we have dealt with it and what we had to go through.